Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, joined by Andrew Champagne for another episode of Drank and Champagne. Andrew, it's been a while. I feel like the last time we talked was before March Madness started, and a lot has happened since then. So I guess we'll just get right into it. How was Las Vegas?
Vegas was good. I appreciate you asking. Gambling wise, it did okay. It was a lot of steady bleeding, it turned out. The first day of the basketball tournament was an absolute bloodbath. Wound up getting back on the treadmill a little bit the last couple of days. Came home with some tickets. Illinois getting out of the Sweet 16 was very, very good for me. I was surprised they were getting points from Iowa State. Wound up hammering that pretty good, and that wound up stopping the bleeding pretty considerably. So that wound up going okay. Do indeed have a token "this can only happen to Andrew's" story. This time, though, coming from a new venue. Wound up going to the Sahara for the first time since they rebuilt and reopened.
Okay.
Nice little place. My dad and I decided to play a poker tournament, one of the nightlies that they have there. And so I wound up busting out. I got absolutely no cards. And so I wound up just saying, okay, I'm going to walk around the property because I hadn't been there since they reopened. Found a $15 blackjack table, which I was not expecting to find on, I forget whether it was Friday night or Saturday night, but I was expecting $25 minimums all the way across the board. I sat down, as it turned out, next to a gentleman from about 15 minutes down the road from me here in Northern California. And I went, okay, this is good. There's no way this isn't good. I turned $60 into $290 playing blackjack for about a half hour. I was on a heck of a heater. Every double worked, every split worked. It doesn't usually work that way. But after that, I cashed out. I wound up going back to the poker room. And I ran into a buddy of mine that I used to work with who winds up saying, yeah, there was a SWAT team here earlier. And I went, what? So as part of this poker tournament, there was a gentleman who had a couple too many pops. And by a couple, I mean 7 or 8. He was in the bag from the moment the tournament started. And with that came a certain unpleasant, jerkish attitude. He knocked somebody out, said something. That guy took exception to it and invited him to meet him outside for a chat.
Goodness.
It wound up escalating to where people that were armed had to come separate them. The guy that got knocked out got kicked off the property. The guy that was in the poker tournament was allowed to remain in the poker tournament, which I didn't think was particularly fair. And that's only one of the 2 things that happened. The guy that I used to work with was in a cash game on the other side of the poker room, wound up winning a pretty big pot and tipped the dealer. The person who lost the pot called him a cheapskate multiple times. And I'm just going, this is the stuff that happens to me and the people in my orbit. I feel like at least some version of this is my fault. But on the plus side, that wound up being a really good run of cards at blackjack. My dad wound up cashing in that poker tournament. My buddy wound up doing really well in the cash game. And the unintentional comedy wound up being off the charts when around, say, 9:30 or so, we start hearing a couple of clacks of heels down the hallway. And it turns into a stampede because the Magic Mike show that they have at the Sahara let out. And it's hundreds of women in heels clacking down the hallway and the sound echoing up and down and all over and people tripping all over themselves. It was that's great unintentional comedy if you ever want to camp out in the Sahara poker room while that's going on. It's a good people watching spot. But as far as the trip goes, trip was good. always a blast to hang out with my dad, play basketball, play some horses, and have a good time doing that. So we're already starting to plan our trip in November for Thanksgiving and our birthdays. So good to be able to start planning that stuff. And yeah, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun, wagering wise, up and down, but ultimately a couple of scores near the end wound up making it an okay trip.
So when you guys go for Thanksgiving, you guys actually go over Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Nice.
So the way it works out is my birthday's November 25th, his birthday's December 3rd. So Thanksgiving is usually a really good time for us to be able to connect and do that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I've my wife and I have often dreamed of taking a holiday, like one of the big holidays, right? Like Christmas, not necessarily New Year's, because New Year's in Vegas is a big thing, and we've done it.
Amateur hour. That's what it
We've
is.
done it once.
Amateur hour.
We've done it once. I not to say I wouldn't do it again. I would do it again under specific circumstances, but we want to do Christmas or Thanksgiving and just like say like, hey family, we love you, but we're gonna take a year off and and go to Vegas. But we've talked about it, but I don't know if either of us have the maybe we'll get the wherewithal to do it at some point. But
I'm just saying, man, I wouldn't do that with Christmas. If you think that's going to work, look up a movie called Four Christmases. It's an awful movie, but that's going to be the plot of your holiday because you're going to wind up getting caught. You're going to wind up getting guilt tripped into spending time with all of your families, and it's not going to go well for you.
but yeah, I think funny story. Well, let's start with March Madness. So I was able to spend some time with our good friend Ryan Dickey.
Okay.
So he is up. He works at a casino local to here.
Did you bring batteries for his remote control?
I did not. So funny story. I was going to bring batteries up, and he because I your funny story, but I was like, this is stupid. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. That's a gimmick move. So I show up, and he we go into he they have like this like sports book area off to the side at this. It's a temporary casino right now. They're building the actual casino next to it, and where this temporary casino is, which is essentially like a permanent tent. Where this is like basically the parking lot for this future casino. But the area, the space is actually really nice. Like you go inside and you do not feel like you're in a tent. Like it's nice. And man is using a iPad to do it, and he is a pro. Let me tell you, he had a sheet ready. He knew when to switch stuff and whatever. There was a time where apparently me and him were in deep conversation, and he missed the start of a game, and he was kind of upset
How
with
dare
himself.
he? How dare he?
But I will say, I had it. I just had this incredible string of luck to start the tournament. So I played that first day. I played a 7-leg parlay, and basically only played money line bets. And I basically took my entire bracket and what I could bet online. So, funny story, in the state of Illinois, you can bet on Illinois colleges, but you can only do it over the counter. So if you want to bet online, you cannot bet any Illinois colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So I was betting on the Circa app, and so I couldn't put any of the Illinois schools in there. I think only Illinois was playing that first day. But so that was out, and then I basically took all the teams that I thought were going to win, and then I basically threw out anything that was like minus 250 or minus 300 or bigger, favorite. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to even bother tossing this in the parlay, right? So I tossed out. Who was the first like real big upset? Was it?
Might have been Kentucky.
No, was it Utah?
Utah was the NIT, so no, it wouldn't have been
No, who
Utah.
was it? BYU. Sorry, it was
BYU.
BYU. Yeah, so I didn't have BYU. I had BYU advancing in my bracket, but I didn't have them. I tossed them because of how big of a favorite they were.
Yep.
And so I tossed a bunch of these. I want to say half of the favorites I tossed lost, which obviously saved my parlay. And but the funniest part of it is I'm sitting there and I'm watching most of the games. I'm through like the first four games, and I'm doing all right. And I'm driving home. I'm listening to the Dayton game, and I have Dayton winning, and Dayton's down by like 17 or 18 or something
Yep.
crazy. And I'm just sitting there. I get home and I'm like watching the game, and I'm taking a nap. I'm like, this is how it ends. Whatever. I lay down. And funny story is, we went out to dinner with a couple of my buddies who were in town. So BJ and Rob were in town, and it was me and my wife's anniversary. So we went out. We celebrated with them. We had dinner. I had a couple beers, and like when I get there, I'm talking to them about my parlay. I'm like, yeah, like I was doing really well, and then Dayton lost, and like they're like Dayton won. I was like, guys, no, Dayton lost. They were down like 18. They're like, yeah, Dayton won. And I had completely written it off because they were down by so much. I don't even remember what the score was when I last saw it, but
They
I
were
was.
down 17, rallied to win, and I can tell you why it happened. Because in the Orleans sportsbook, my father and I attracted someone who was laughing every time Dayton touched the ball. They had obviously hammered Nevada. He started laughing every time Dayton turned the ball over or missed a shot or whatever. And you know how the gambling gods work. The gambling gods penalized that guy with a lightning bolt from straight out of heaven and wound up getting both you and my father home. My dad had a 5-leg parlay that finished with Samford miraculously rallying to cover against Kansas. So I can relate there for sure. And the second you started talking about Dayton and Nevada, a big smile came over my face because I knew where that was going, because that's how my dad and I felt watching that game. Nevada had that game in hand, and then they didn't.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely something else. And I'm trying to find. Oh, I was like, I know I have the ticket written down here somewhere. I'm trying to find where I saved
Yeah,
it.
you sent it to me. I might have
Oh,
it if you
I
don't.
did. Um, duh, duh, duh. There we go. Yeah, so I think the only thing I want to say either Texas or Washington State. Maybe it was Texas. Texas was like minus 100, so they were like a slight dog. They weren't like a
It
big.
was Washington
Oh,
State
Washington
because they
State.
were playing Drake. Drake took a whole bunch of money, led for most of the game, and Washington State eventually got him in the last minute, I think.
Yeah, and then NC State I had on the money line.
Yep.
So that was me taking that was my only that was the only like real big dog I took, and they were like plus 180 or something. They weren't like a huge dog, but yeah, so I hit the seven legger and it paid 77 to 1. So that kickstarted that weekend, and it's funny, Andrew, because I think the same thing happened. Maybe it was last year, and with your help, I think I had a bunch of free bets with one of the places, and I didn't listen to you on Fairleigh Dickinson to start the to start it off. They played. Oh, who was it? Who did they play in the play-in game?
Fairleigh Dickinson, I believe, was it Texas? It was Texas Southern, I think.
Yes, Texas Southern. Because I remember, my buddy Bobby was he loved Texas Southern, and the funny thing is he lives in New Jersey, so he could not play that game.
Yep.
But he was like he loved Texas Southern, so I took a bunch of Texas Southern, and you were on Fairleigh Dickinson, and I should have listened to you from the start.
In fairness, there was some heart with that pick. The then head coach of Fairleigh Dickinson was a gentleman by the name of Tobin Anderson, who was an assistant coach at Siena when I worked there. Great guy, smart dude. He parlayed that into the Iona job, and he's doing very well there. So, Tobin, if you're out there, congratulations. Hope all is well, buddy. But yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful time of the year. And I was pretty happy that I was able to come back home with a little bit of action. Illinois was obviously big for me. I wound up hitting sort of miraculously this 4-team teaser that also included Seton Hall and the NIT. It included North Carolina +2, which pushed because Alabama missed one, maybe two free throws at the end to only win by 2. It included Creighton +8. They were down 17 pretty deep into the second half. They rallied to cover that part of the teaser to where it was 3 wins and a push, and I get like 13-10 off of that. So it was a pretty funny thing, but Illinois winning, Seton Hall winning the way that they did, it made for an okay envelope that got sent out to the folks at Boyd Gaming. By the way, tomorrow night, we're recording this on Wednesday, so Thursday night, the NIT final is going to be a really good game. Indiana State and Seton Hall, 2 teams that absolutely should have made the field of 68, inexplicably did not. That's going to be a really good game, Josh. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of brackets, bracket pools. One is at work, small. It's like it's a bigger pool, but it's a smaller amount. And that one, I'm like middle of the pack, and I don't have a chance to win. I think I'm basically covered at this point. I had Kentucky going to the Final Four.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I never learned my lesson there. But in a smaller pool I have with some buddies, which is a bigger amount, winner take all, I think it's down to 2 of us. In order for me to win, I need Purdue to lose and UConn to win it all. So I got a lot riding on this NC State game.
Yeah, you need the Wolfpack pretty good. You need their big guy to overcome Zach Edey, and that's going to either go really well or really bad for you because Zach Edey is a freak of nature.
Hey, I got a sweat at least, and yeah. What's funny, Andrew. So I was talking about my bet I hit, and so after that, I did a couple of other like bigger parlays, but for the most part, I scaled down. I did a couple round robins. I did a couple other stuff, and I was basically up and down, and then at a certain point, I'm like, all right, once the first 4 days pass by, the betting proposition isn't as great for me. Like I like the fact that there's a bunch of action. In fact, when I was sitting next to Ryan, the North Carolina game was coming up, and that was one of the games I didn't play. And I was just like, I needed action. And Andrew was like, yeah, he was like, I hate this. He's like, I don't have any action in this game either. And so I bet Baycott to score over, I forgot if it was like 14 and a half. I think it was 14 and a half points. He had 13 or 14 points by the end of the first half. So I just needed a bucket in the second half, and those are always nice to cash when you cash those overs early. But yeah, so I was just kind of up and down after that. I took my profit, and I think the rest of it's going to be on the just in the bracket pools I have. But yeah, speaking of Vegas, I do have a trip. I rebooked basically all of the credit I had, plus I had gift cards and stuff. I have a buddy, and he listens or he follows my stuff. So Jeff may or may not be listening, but he is getting his vows renewed by Elvis, I think is the plan, this summer. And I had he is like, you want to come? And it coincides with him going to a conference. So we're probably only going to overlap 1 or 2 days. But I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I was like, Jeff's getting renewing his vows for with Elvis and all. She's like, I need to see this. So we did the math. We looked at the credit. We ended up paying a grand total of $100 for our flights because I had flight credit and gift cards and other stuff. And it would have been less, but with Southwest, flight credit isn't transferable. So I still have like $50 or $60 in flight credit. And we have a nice comp room at Park MGM over the weekend. So basically, he's going to get married on Monday. We're going to fly in Friday night, be there Saturday, Sunday by ourselves. Monday, he's going to be in. We're going to grab dinner, do stuff. And then we're going to leave Tuesday, and Tuesday his conference starts. So, yeah, I think it's sometime, I think it's like the first full week of July. We're going to
I got to
fly
tell
in.
you, it's really, really good that your wife was so cool with that and going into that because, you can't go on together with suspicious minds.
Is that an Elvis song?
Yes, yes, it is. How do you not know Suspicious Minds? Come on, man.
I don't know. Andrew, I like the fact that you are still surprised by my lack of, and like,
You're a musician.
man, we'll have the music talk some other time. We'll have the music talk some other time. Yeah, there'll be some more Vegas-y type content coming out. I know, I feel like we do cover a lot of different
Can I
stuff
make
here.
one recommendation / shout out to the people out there that like
Yeah.
our Vegas stuff? Because my dad and I did something different this trip. We actually found a new to us restaurant completely off the strip, off the beaten path. It's between Mandalay Bay and South Point, so south of the strip. It's a neighborhood that we hadn't spent any time in, really. It's a place called the Bootlegger Bistro. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's an old school Italian place. We ate there, caught the end of both the UConn and the Alabama games from the round of 32. We both covered with both of them, and we needed that because those were cardio workouts near the end where the spread was very much in jeopardy. We got there, we had a blast. We requested a cab or an Uber or whatever it was, got picked up. And the guy that picked us up said that he knew that place because he used to drive a truck that ran vodka and liquor and all sorts of alcohol to
Hmm.
there. And I went, "You were the bootlegger." And my dad didn't want to laugh, but he laughed. That made the
Goodness.
trip. That made the trip right there. But
Um,
seriously, folks, Bootlegger Bistro, really good Italian food that isn't going to break the bank.
so funny story. The reason I know about that place is because in what was it? It was the Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. He did a episode of Las Vegas, and they went to the bootlegger,
Oh,
and
really?
there
I
was
didn't know that. Okay.
there was a singer by the name of Laura Schaefer who was there, and she kind of like does like the whole like dresses up like a lounge singer from the 50s. She's
Okay.
very very good. Her dad played piano with her or played piano for her. Really really good. And I was actually just checking the bootlegger's website to see if she was still performing there, but it doesn't look like it. But
No, there was a guy that was performing, and he was very good. So yeah, it's good stuff. Good food, really good atmosphere. And look, I'm a native New Yorker, so when it comes to Italian food, I am not an easy audience to please. This did it. Really good stuff there, guys.
nice. Um, what else? What else? You got anything else going on? Anything coming up? I know you've probably are all over Forte 2.0 all over again here.
I would like to point out that as we record this on Wednesday, April 3rd, we are 5 days away from the first ever Lord Miles Day celebration. Yep, still haven't hung this up, but that's just because, it's nice to be able to grab that and torment Josh with it on our regular shows. Monday, April 8th, folks. And if you're wondering where this bit came from, look up old comic strips of Peanuts and see how Schroeder, the pianist, celebrates Beethoven's birthday, complete with the signs and all that other stuff. That's exactly where this is coming from. And once you see that, you'll understand the bit just a little bit more. But yeah, so very excited about that. Also very excited about a couple other things that we've got in the works. Expanded Kentucky Derby coverage on the site that I do a lot of my work on for the day job. That's winnersandwhiners.com. We got off to a really good start last week. Gave out the ice cold exacta in the Florida Derby. Fierceness was fierceness, but Catalytic wound up running second at a big
Forte.
Hey,
Excuse me.
I'm just saying that I wasn't happy about the horse that came in first. I was happy about the horse that came in second. That made the wager, and that also put me up into third in the Trust the Profits contest, in which I'd been really struggling for most of the Derby prep season. I was 74th of about 90 coming into the weekend, and I'm third now. So,
Hey,
Catalytic, thank you very much. Appreciate you, buddy. But you can take a look at winnersandwhiners.com. Thank you. Later this week, we'll have analysis of the 3 Kentucky Derby preps. And if it turns out that contest is doing well, we'll do more of it. That's the way SEO works. You figure out what works and you keep doing it until Google tells you otherwise. Also, of course, the Derby Bubble over on the Pollock Report. This week's edition just went live. We've got 3 preps coming up this weekend, people, and the fireworks may not be over. There's a court injunction. Bafford's horses. Who knows? I have no idea, but I don't know. At any rate, go look at that stuff. Plenty of content there to keep everybody busy. And Josh, I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if you paid attention in our pre-show meeting, but Keeneland starts on Friday. How about we take a look at the All-Turf Pick 3?
It does, but before we do that, I need to trash the future Derby favorite here for a second.
Of course you do.
No, we'll talk a lot. We'll talk a lot more. Obviously, when we get closer, we see more.
Do you see my mug here? Do you see my mug? Yeah, my mug, by the way, for those of you out there that are listening rather than watching, it says, "I'm sorry you're old." And then up here it says, "That's all." I deliberately got this mug just to mess with Josh.
Goodness. I did really, we'll get more into actually, as the field kind of takes shape. I just mentioned on live stream, I think it was last week, I still feel like even like before last week, I felt like I don't even know who's going to make the gate at this point. It's very, very wide open, which sometimes wide open people equate to weak. And maybe that's the case, I don't know. I think
we don't know enough yet.
Yeah. And we'll get deeper into that as we get closer, obviously. But I did want to shout out Craig Milkowski for just an amazing April Fool's joke, where he, everybody and their mother is just clamoring for fierceness to just.
Not everybody.
Well, a lot of people do not want, are like, this horse isn't real, what that trip, whatever. And I mean, count me as one of them, but that's just how I go. Our friend Sarah El Badwi is also a non-believer, which I appreciated.
I'll tell you this: she made a lot of people very angry with her mere existence. Once again, I applaud that.
But when he posted that he was going to adjust the figure down, and just how many people were just like applauding it and coming out, and then he by some way of the math, it was like 4-1 was like in everything that he was doing, and it was just a masterpiece. So shout out to Craig for trolling people. Real recognizes real, and if there's one thing I do love, it's a good troll. So shout out to Craig there for winning the week.
Craig Milkowski and I have known each other about 20 years. I love that guy. Nothing but respect for him. Incredibly hardworking guy, and as good a handicapper as he is, even better human being, a guy that's always been incredibly kind to me and done a lot for me. So obviously, shout out to Craig there. And yeah, the only thing that I will say with fierceness is this, and I just want your honest answer to this question. I know it's not 100% likely, and that's why anybody saying they're betting fierceness right now, not knowing post positions or anything like that, is foolish. Josh, just tell me this one thing. If fierceness runs his A race, who beats him?
Someone who runs their S race.
Eh. Seriously, though, that's the thing that I like. I don't want to drag him too much because I understand where he was coming from. Kyle Levy over at TVG, FanDuel TV, put fierceness seventh on his Kentucky Derby list. I understand you don't want to bet the horse. If fierceness, say, draws post position 18, 19, or 20, has no interference on the front end of the Kentucky Derby, who beats him? No one. You can't justifiably put a credible list out there and not have him at or near the top of it. You just can't do it. So that explains the top of my Derby bubble for sure, for those of you that are looking at that. If you are looking at our YouTube show right now, you are seeing leg one of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3 on opening day of the spring meeting, Friday, April 5th. This Pick 3 comprises races 5, 8, and 10. And Josh, a lot of big fields signed on. You know it's Keeneland when you see turf races that draw overflow fields. In fact, races 5 and 10 are a split of the same race.
Yeah, and they this is a tough sequence. The $3 base makes it tough, makes you make tough decisions. You know, you don't want to toss, a couple $100 into this, right? This isn't a pick 5, right? It's still a pick 3. But I don't know. I think it just makes you strategize more, to keep your tickets in a reasonable amount and not have to, not completely spread. And it juices the payouts as well, right? The takeout's lower, and the higher base, I think, just means that there are fewer winning tickets. So the fact that we have 2 overdrawn fields, we have 13 in this one, and I believe 13 in the last one, the last leg, and yeah, it's going to be tough.
We got 14 in the 8th too, counting the 2 also eligibles. Yeah.
Yep. And just to start in this race, I have a B and a C horse written down, and Andrew, I don't think I'm going to be able to use them.
Yeah, I hear you. I went 4 deep. Josh, you wound up going 2 deep. We have absolutely nothing in common. That's the beauty of this kind of wager, is you're going to see a lot of different strategies focused on specifically trying to beat certain horses, specifically trying to get certain horses home. And you really have to make an effort to minimize your combinations so that your ticket doesn't cost $600. And I'm exaggerating here, but if I had not been careful, this ticket could have easily been $120, $140, $160. That's how competitive these fields are. My ticket wound up being $36 because there's a horse in the last leg that I liked enough to single. And I was very, very happy that that horse wound up coming up, because that's the only way this ticket for me is playable.
Yeah, and we'll get started here. So the 2 of the horses that I've written down as B and C, and honestly, Andrew, this was first pass through it. I could change things. We'll see what happens. I'll say my top pick in this race is going to be the 1 horse, Cape O'Donna, Ray Handel and Flavian Pratt. Teaming up for this one.
Wait a minute, you're backing a Flavian Pratt ridden horse?
I know.
Who are you?
It's just
blink twice if you need help.
It's just, cats and dogs living together. It's just rough. But in these turf races, I'm heavily looking at pedigree. I'm heavily looking at turf winners. I'm looking at stakes winners. I'm trying to see, hey, where have the productive, have the progeny of other horses, same families, well, have they been productive? Especially with you just have these lightly raced horses, and none of them really have these knockout races, right? And I think the one Cape O'Donnell has probably got the most pedigree upside in this race. Three turf winners from three starters out of the dam. The dam was a stakes winner, Bauble Queen. I'm sure Andrew knows who it is, and he'll be able to tell you, all kinds of nonsense about the horse, but whatever. But three winners, they're all turf winners, and a stakes winner, all out of this dam. And on top, you got Medaglia d'Oro, who is 12% first time turf. You got a productive dam. You have turf pedigree on top. You have pedigree that wants to go the distance that is being run at here. And for that reason, I'm going to lean pretty heavily on this one. Ray Handel, not necessarily known for winning first time out, but the works look okay for this horse. Looks like they were working it down at Fairgrounds and brought it up to Keeneland. You know, maybe we're asking a lot for the first time starter to get there, but I feel like 6 to 1, 6 to 1 is going to be a pretty square price. I think there's a couple of horses in here that are going to take more money than they see in the morning line. One of them being a horse I've written down as a B, the 5, Cy B, who's 8 to 1 in the morning line. I don't think you get that. But just outside of Cape O'Donnell is Spinning Class, the 2, for Vinny Chemino and Shug McGahee. And I think this is one that might float up a little bit. I don't think the races have necessarily been as strong as maybe some of the other horses that I've ridden in here. But this is Shug, right? This is Shug bringing this horse along, and bringing his horse along slowly, which is just what he does. And his horses tend to fire best third off the layoff, and we're coming into that right form cycle. You're looking at this horse; they've progressively added more and more distance, and this is a horse that's tended to be forwardly placed here, and I think that's going to be advantage here. There's not a ton of speed signed up, I don't think, so I think being forwardly placed, I think might be an advantage here for the 2 Spinning Class, and I don't like set. They have him at 7 to 2 in the morning line. I think maybe. Nick Tamaro's got a bit of his own handicapping in here. So I expect this horse to float up a little bit. Maybe we'll get closer to 4 to 5 to 1 in this race. But this is a pretty wide open race. I mean, Andrew, you have four horses, 2 of which I also liked. So I'll let you go ahead and get started here.
Sure. So right off the bat, if Capodonna was trained by almost anybody else, I'd be using the horse. Josh, can you look for me at the debut turf numbers for Ray Handel?
Yep. 0%. 0 for 20.
Yeah, that's too big a sample size for me to ignore. I just think that horse needs a race. Spinning Class, meanwhile, I'm just not impressed with enough to play the horse at the likely odds. I do think she is your likely favorite. I do think Shug McGahee is going to move money. The last out race wasn't terrible, but to steal a phrase from our friend Caleb, she had a candy ass trip on that particular day. And I just can't bet a maiden off of a perfect trip where she not only couldn't get it done, she lost ground turning for home. I can't bet that horse at or near the likely price. My top selection is the horse that I think is going to be the second choice. That's number 7, Everything Bugs Me. Shout out Horse Racing Twitter. First time Lasix off the bench for a trainer that is on a cold stretch. But you mentioned there not being a lot of speed in the race. Find me a horse early in the race that's faster than Everything Bugs Me, given what this one ran last time out at Del Mar, going the half in 47-3 at a big, big price. This horse ran second that day. The winner came back to win. The third place finisher came right back to win. And I think Everything Bugs Me is very well meant. First time Lasix, first off the bench with some experience under her belt. Mind you, I'm going 4 deep. It's not like I've got an insane amount of confidence in that horse, but if anyone goes wire to wire, I think it's the 7. You mentioned Cy B, and I think this is an intriguing proposition because if this horse hadn't run on March the 6th and was just coming in off of that February 7th race at Turfway where she did not break well, she wound up passing other horses and just flattened a little bit late, there's a chance this horse would be your favorite or your second choice. Last time out, I think she just bounced off of what turned out to be a pretty darn good effort first time out. Arad Ortiz Jr. sees fit to ride when he probably had several options. That to me is a big plus. I think Cy B's got a big shot. And I'm also going to go with 2 horses towards the outside. Number 10, Talonade, is the one horse that the morning line hits me as a little bit wrong on. 15-1 on the morning line for a Graham motion trained turf horse stretching out second off the bench. This horse is not going to be 15-1, especially with John Velasquez up. And before we go much further, my usual disclaimer: making morning lines is hard. Morning line makers get no credit when they get things right, and they're the first people that get hammered when things go wrong. I simply think Talonade is going to be closer to the 8-1, 10-1 range than the 15-1 range that we're seeing right now. But second off the bench, gets Lasix again. Velasquez sees fit to ride back, and I think has room to improve off of that last out effort where she rated in a pretty paceless race. The pedigree says she's going to take to this extra distance, and I think second off the layoff, she's going to be a little bit sharper. Finally, I'm using your Seahorse, number 11, Swans Cove. They came home pretty quick last time at Gulfstream Park. 6 furlongs in 112-2. They finished the mile in 135-1. That's a sub 23 second last quarter mile. I know Gulfstream Park's turf course can play pretty fast, but I think Swans Cove is bred to improve with experience. That damn Cocoa Beach was a very, very, very nice racehorse. Won a lot of stakes races for, I believe it was Bobby Frankel who had her. Godolphin Homebred, Bill Mott and Junior Alvarado. We've seen this movie before. I need to use Swans Cove in here. I'm 4 deep. 5, 7, 10, 11, and I'm trying to beat Spinning Class. I understand why you think she's got a shot to win, but I can't play her at the likely price because I do think she's going to be favored, and she does not hit me as the most likely winner.
Yeah, what you kind of said about the 1 is kind of how I feel about the 11. If it was any other trainer but Bill Mott, I would probably move this horse up. Second career race, he's only 9%. So I would maybe expect to wait maybe another start or two to get behind this one. Very productive dam again, 5 turf winners from 7 starters. And you kind of see the same thing with the 5 Cy B. You got 5 turf winners from 9 starters. You got 2 stakes winners. You got 6 winners total. So very productive dam, Ocean Drive there. And honestly, I think like Cy B probably makes tickets of mine. I think might be one that I won't want to get beat. I think you pointed out something really important with Irad getting the board. I mean, you gotta think that this horse is well meant if Irad's getting a board in this spot. But yeah, I think we have this race surrounded. So when we miss, it will only be even more, more.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, the last horse I threw out was number 8, Morning Splendor. This is a horse that's bred to go very long on turf. The damn Moms on Strike was a really nice horse. Victoria Oliver knows how to train a horse getting second time Lasix, 24% there. Would I be shocked if that one outran the odds? No. I wouldn't be shocked if that one wound up doing something there. But again, with this $3 minimum, you really can't play them all.
I will let you bet all you want on a Union Rags horse running on turf. Yeah, I would probably book that action for you. I want absolutely nothing to do with that. But yeah, we'll move on. Another race coming up here, the Transylvania, going to mile 16th on the turf, where we have, I don't know, a third or over a third of the field covered, and no horses in common. The first leg, I at least had 2 horses I kind of liked that you liked as well. This one, I got nothing. I got 2 A's. You got 3 horses here. Andrew, I'll let you go first. Who do you like here?
Sure. So your two betting favorites in some order are probably going to be number six, First World War, and number eight, Musical Act. First World War has yet to run a bad race, has run on multiple surfaces, has shown a lot of talent. Last time out, won the Grade 3 Kitten's Joy over at Gulfstream Park, ran a mile and a 16th and 139 and 3 over what was basically green pavement, right? I mean, that's just an absolutely crazy time. And the fact that the speed figure from Briz came out to just an 82 shows you how fast that turf course wound up being. I think he's got a lot of class, though. I think he's got plenty of tactical speed, and I think Tyler Gaffleone's going to have a lot of options. Needed to use that one. Horse number eight, Musical Act, ships in from Dubai for Charles Appleby, who has won every single turf race of note that we have here in the United States of America. This one has run up against a very nice, also Charles Appleby trained horse by the name of Legend of Time, who is 4 for 5 in the career, has won stakes races, and you're probably going to see that one in some really big spots down the road. So I would not take those last two efforts lightly. Frankie Dettori comes in to ride. Frankie Dettori in a big turf race. We've seen this movie before. Sure seems like Musical Act is very well met. However, there's another one I think you need to consider. 20 to 1 on the morning line, and I don't know if we're going to get that price, but if we do, I'm going to need to have a healthy win wager on number 3, Laganos. I really hope I'm saying that right. Laganos comes in after running in the wrong races for the right reasons. They caught Derby fever with this horse. They sent him to the Smarty Jones. They sent him to the Rebel. 2 starts ago in the Smarty Jones, he was 3 to 1 in a race that was won by Catching Freedom, where Just Steel ran second. Those 2 horses are headed to the Kentucky Derby. They gave him another shot in the Rebel, didn't go so well. This horse is back on turf. Josh, can you highlight the one turf race in this one's form that debuts September 10th at Kentucky Downs? Yes, it was going 6.5 furlongs, but I thought that was a bang-up performance. Horse won by 2.5 lengths that day, and I think has been a turf horse all along, where they felt like they need to run this horse on the dirt to at least see what they had because of those 2 races at Churchill Downs in November. It's easy to get Derby fever when you've got a 2-year-old that has a win over the Churchill Downs main track. The big thing that I love, though, and I'm going to steal a phrase from our friend Chase, the Wolf of Oaklawn, I am a little pig boy for this particular angle, the Steve Asmussen work tab, where that work 2 back is very fast, and the most recent work is a maintenance drill. March 24th, 5 furlongs in a minute and 4, 5th fastest of 28 at the distance. Last time out, 4 furlongs in 50 and 4. Maintenance work, he's got Laganos right where he wants him, and I think he's going to be pretty prominent early. If you look at those fractions from that debut at Kentucky Downs, this horse has some early speed. We know he can go a distance of ground because he won going 2 turns against winners at Churchill back on November 25th. I think this one's very, very live. I hope we get the 20 to 1 morning line price. It probably comes down a couple of ticks, but I got to tell you, based on the speed figures, based on the fact that I think this has been a turf horse all along, if you're looking for a knockout horse, I think this one might be it.
Yeah, I'm never going to talk somebody off a 20 to 1 shot. However, on the positive side, 6.5 at Kentucky Downs is basically like a mile anywhere else. You basically start going uphill. So on the plus side, I don't think that the distance is really going to be a huge issue. On the negative, I believe Kentucky Downs on that day was incredibly biased to forward, so that could have aided in that. But the horse wasn't on the lead. There was a big stakes race wired by Get Smoking at a huge price. And that was basically like showing full circle how bad the bias was. But I this is one you see this happen often where they just run them on the wrong surface for a while. They get their form dirty up a little bit, and hey, maybe we get them on the right surface, and they become a different horse. So 20 to 1, I didn't see it, but Andrew, hey, maybe you got another Lord Miles on your hands. I don't know. I actually landed on a middle price and a bit of a bomb at 15 to 1. We'll start with the 11 full Nelson. This is another Irad Ortiz ridden horse. Jose D'Angelo shipping this one in from Florida. And, you know, I feel like once they got this horse on turf and off the synthetic, this horse just, I mean, the horses just started to rattle off wins. I mean, did win, broke his maiden on a synthetic in a maiden claimer, was claimed off that win into Jose D'Angelo's barn. Looked like he needed one, and then once they put a little bit of distance in this horse, just started rattling off wins. One at Gulfstream, and then they shipped in Tampa. And this is a horse that's just progressively gotten better. You see these speed figures that are just getting better and better and better, and you just keep on seeing those ones in the finish line, right? This horse just keeps on winning. And going to be another horse I think is going to be forwardly placed. Once again, this is another race where I just don't necessarily see a ton of speed, so I think this could be one that gets his own way. Not necessarily on the lead, but maybe sitting, second or third, just outside the whoever grabs the lead. And yeah, I think that this could be this is for me is your most likely winner. I know you talked about the 8 musical act, and this feels like a trap to me, like a trap horse. This feels like a horse that people are going to see Charles Appleby. They're going to see this horse shipping in. They're going to be like, well, obviously, right? Like we're going to bet this horse, but you start to kind of look at the way the horse is campaigned. Went broke its maiden on a synthetic, ended up winning another nice race on a synthetic, and they put him back on the grass, 7, against some nice horses, as you said, Andrew, but losing by 11 lengths there. Okay, fine, cross the line through that. And then finish a second, right, to obviously the horse you talked about, Legend of Time, very nice horse. But still finish second by 4 3/4 lengths, right? I think it might be a little bit dressed up, so I'm going to be against here what I think is probably going to be a pretty short price. But the other horse that I am going to include is going to be the 5 Tennessee. And this is a horse for Brad Cox and Jose Ortiz. This is first time on the turf. But you look at this pedigree, all Justify's been doing is pumping out turf winners, very much like his. I was going to say barn mate, but they never really were in the same barn. But much like the previous Triple Crown winner before him, American Pharaoh seems to have just a knack for knocking out turf horses.
I maintain this. I think American Pharaoh was the best turf horse Bob Baffert ever trained. Seriously, look at the replays and look at how that horse glides. You're telling me that horse wouldn't have been able to go 1.5 miles on a firm turf course in about 2:21?
Hey, maybe he would have had a G1 winner before Dujour a couple months ago.
Hey, entirely possible.
But Justify seems to be at least right now the Justify, and I want to say Mendelssohn. Right, I wish I had Jessica Tugwell's breeding knowledge, but I think Justify and Mendelssohn are going to be kind of the stewards of the Scat Daddy line. Obviously, since Scat Daddy tragically passed a couple years ago.
I'm just happy you know who Scat Daddy was. I'm proud.
I just know that he's the sire for Justify. I've literally never seen him run, but I do know that he likes to put out turf horses. So, anyways. Very, very productive dam. Once again, we've talked about this before, and you're like, this is a stakes race. Why does it matter? Well, this is a horse that hasn't run on the turf yet, and I think because of that, you're going to get a bit of a price. Obviously, they tried him on dirt, brought him over the turfway, won 2 straight races there at very, very short prices. The last race. Won by a solid length, and the second place winner, Evening News, came out to win a race out of that. To sound like Andrew, That's what we call a key race.
I
But
don't sound like that.
3 turf winners from 6 starters, very productive dam. And then, like I said, you have Justify, who is just on fire right now with these turf horses. So a bit of a pedigree play at a price. Jose Ortiz, who is going to stay in Kentucky, which I just absolutely love. He's going to stay in Kentucky to ride, and I think this is how he's going to start making his inroads, is starting here at Keeneland. So I foresee Jose Ortiz riding a lot for Brad Cox. Maybe Flo finally gets unseated for a, well, we're not going to get into jockey talk, but I think this is another horse that looks very interesting here. Is going to be a price. So I'm just going to use those 2 horses. I'm going to use the 5 Tennessee and my top pick, the 11 Full Nelson.
I am not going to talk you off a 15-1 shot, nor am I going to talk you off of a WrestleMania weekend hunch play with Full Nelson. Saturday and Sunday, I am in my element. What with basketball going on, several different tracks going on, and then WrestleMania at night, both nights. It's a good weekend to be me.
Man, you know what one of the I don't know, I have this weird guilty pleasure. Every once in a while I will find these videos, but there's these videos of they're like prank calls where like someone calls, it's like, are you ready? Like, she's like, ready for what? And then it's like for WWE superstar John Cena. It's like some like WWE promo, and like the lady's like, no, that is never going to happen in this house. And like they just like keep calling the person back. I don't know. I don't know. I get a kick out of that, but for some reason your wrestling talk reminded me of that. But yeah, we're 5 deep here. We got a field of 12. We got 2 AEs. I didn't really give either of the AEs much of a look in this spot. I thought maybe the 13 could be a little interesting, but I don't know. Didn't really run much last time in the Colonel Liam. But moving on to race 3, the other maiden and the payoff leg here, and you have a single in here. And before we get to your single, I do want to mention that if this 13 does draw in, I am extremely interested in it at a price. Mont Saint Michel, Brendan Walsh just knows how to train a turf horse. He is 26% second time on the grass. You look at the dam stats on this one. You got 6 turf winners from 7 starters, 2 stakes winners, and you just got distance pedigree top and bottom. You got turf pedigree top and bottom. And this was one, they ran him last time out. You look at the notes, seemed to have a little bit of a kind of a Z pattern there where he kind of was forced out, and lost a bit of ground, and just never really kept on after that. So I would definitely give this one another shot if this one ends up drawing in. But there's a horse that you and I both like, and you have as a single. Talk to me about your 9, Just Deny.
Sure. So I agree with you, by the way, on the 13. Definitely worth a look if that one winds up drawing in. But the more I look at number 9, Just Deny, the more I like her. First time out, race gets rained off the turf, gets run out of the Wilson chute at Saratoga. Tough for any horse to run on that, let alone a first-time starter. Just drawing a line completely through that. They bring that horse back September 3rd at Saratoga, catches the turf, winds up rating behind a very slow pace, 51 to the half. Yeah, closers were not going to win that particular race, though she did make up a little bit of ground late at a little bit of a price. They then shipped the horse to Keeneland, and Josh, I absolutely love that last out effort. In that last out effort, she stalked, she pounced, she wound up settling for second behind a very nice horse named Lady DeBerry. Lady DeBerry, next time out, ran second in the Grade 3 Jimmy Durante at Del Mar, has not run since, has been back on the work tab for Chad Brown, expecting to see that one later this spring, maybe early this summer in a race up in New York probably. But Just Deny has not run since. Still, I see first time Lasix. I see a horse that's training very forwardly. I see Danny Gargan, who is excellent with a number of similar runners, off of long layoffs, 28%. First time Lasix, 26%. Luis Saez sees fit to ride when he probably had several options. And I see a horse that, based on the pedigree, is going to love this mile and 3/16 distance. By Justify, who we talked about a lot, out of a Galileo mare. That's long on turf, top and bottom. Any sort of move forward off of that last out performance makes Just Deny the one to beat. What you're dealing with, though, is that 5.5 month layoff. That, to me, is probably why she's not going to go favored. But I think we're going to get a lot of value out of this horse. If she's ready, she's absolutely the one to beat. And for me, for that reason, she is a single in the payoff leg of this all-turf pick 3. Number 7, Missoula, is probably going to be your favorite, but I don't particularly like that horse. I don't like betting maidens that had perfect trips and didn't win last time. This one set that very slow pace in the race Spinning Class comes out of. So if you like Spinning Class, you like Missoula. If you don't like Spinning Class, you probably don't like Missoula. I don't like either of them. Josh, you like both. And I understand it, because if Missoula winds up getting out to the lead and getting comfortable, I could see it. But to me, it seems like this horse was supposed to win last time and didn't, and is now going to be a short price this time against a horse that seems pretty well met. So I singled the 9 in this particular spot, and I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, what really stuck out to me about the 7 as well, though, I mean, Christophe Clement, you look at his stats for basically anything turf, and they always look good. But second turf race, he is 36% in the last 28. So, he wins first time on turf very frequently. So the fact that if he doesn't win that first time, he comes back and tends to win that second one a lot. I really like. Irad stays aboard, which I think is a plus. I will say, I think Irad's the best we got in America. I don't really think that there's much of an argument about that. If he has one weakness, it's when he's on a horse that wants to be on the lead. And I don't know if it's just confidence that he thinks he can just rate every horse, or just want, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like with these horses, like this is like the only time I maybe get a little concerned about Irad being on a horse I like, is if it's a horse that looks to be possibly lone speed. And looking through this, I didn't see a whole lot of speed. I mean, you do have the 5 drawn inside, and if the 5 does go, I think Irad definitely sits off. But yeah, I couldn't single. I really was thinking about it. But yeah, no, everything you said about Just Deny, I mean, you see Galileo mare, you see Justify on top, you see a horse that they paid a lot of money for. This is a horse that they have stakes written all over it. This is a horse I think you're going to see at Saratoga running in those 3-year-old invitationals for a lot of money. So really interested to see how this one runs. I love it in this spot, same as you. Obviously, if the 13 gets in, I like the 13 as a price. I have one horse written as a B. I don't think I'm going to have the budget to use it. But like I said, hey, scratches happen. Stuff happens. Maybe if I end up having a single in a different race or something else happens, maybe I do end up using it. The 10, Redo, for John Ortiz and Ray Gutierrez. This is a horse that started off on the turf. Started off basically routing right away, going 7.5 at Gulfstream, going the mile, and is a horse that seemed to he took a big step between that first and second start, and then Gulfstream did Gulfstream things and decided, hey, we're gonna card a lot of synthetic races. Not that I have a problem with the synthetic racings, but this horse probably couldn't find a race, and they had to run it on synthetic, and he kind of maybe takes a bit of a step back or doesn't really move forward off that. So I'm kind of crossing the line through that last race. Even though he ended up getting placed third through disqualification, I don't think the interference was with him. I think the interference was somebody else. But I think you kind of cross the line through that last one, and not that there's really anything wrong with that race, but just to kind of think about progression that maybe you're seeing here in a horse that's going to have his third turf start, and is a horse that is coming from a family with 5 turf winners from 6 starts, 2 stakes winners. I mean, this is definitely a horse that's got some turf pedigree there, more than ready, can run on anything. So I just thought that this was an intriguing horse based off of pedigree, based off of the 2 turf races looking like they were improving, and then this synthetic really is a third surface. I know we talk about all these turf horses like the synthetic and synthetic. I mean there's some overlap, but I really think you got to treat it as a third surface. So if this horse had run on dirt that start, I think everyone would have a much easier time just crossing the line through it. So yeah, I don't know. I think this horse can take a step forward. Is it going to be enough to win here? I mean, this is a pretty salty group, I think, of maidens here, especially like I said between the 7 and the 9. I think both are maybe a bit unlucky to draw each other in this race. But I think the 10 was pretty interesting here at what I think is going to probably be a pretty long price.
You mentioned long prices. Before we go much further, we need to do the Mark Capitan thing and point out a takeout reducer. I am referring to horse number 3, Guinevere. Josh, could you please tell the good people out there who the owners of Guinevere are?
Ah, my racehorse.
Good luck to anybody that owns a piece of this horse. I have no ill will towards you. There's no way this horse should be 6-1 or anywhere remotely close to that. When was the last time you saw a Wesley Ward horse going 1.3 miles at second asking?
Yeah.
It's weird. And this seems like one of those entries that they wanted to get in a race opening day at Keeneland. There's some long turf pedigree here, but last time had to be the time for that horse. I was not overly impressed. Bet against for me, especially going 1.3 miles against what seems like a really salty group of maidens. If I was going to include any other horse in here, it would actually be the one, Moonlight Gambler, for Ben Colebrook, who circles this meet on the calendar every single year, goes second off the layoff, might need a little bit of pace, but certainly has the talent to potentially win this based off of the race she ran in the Jessamine last year, where she was 5th, beaten 4 lengths by a couple of really nice horses. Repeat of that race may be good enough to win, but again, you can't play them all in a race with a $3 in a wager rather with a $3 minimum bet.
Yeah. I'm excited for this meet to start. I will say, I say this every year, that I'm very excited for Keeneland to start, and by the end of the first weekend, I'm usually tapping out and being like, "Why was I so excited for this?" But it's good racing. If you just like to watch racing, maybe not necessarily bet on it all the time, you're always going to see some good racing here at Keeneland. I do think sometimes it can get a little chalky, but that's stakes racing nowadays. So, but I think it's going to do it for us, Andrew. What you kind of plugged some of your stuff that's coming up this week. What else you got planned?
Sure. So I did mention WrestleMania weekend. Was able to go on a podcast with one of our friends, Gino Bacola. Chad Cooper was able to join in, and we previewed both days of WrestleMania. You can check that out on the That's What G Said podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. That was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed doing that. And yeah, you can find me this weekend betting on horses by day and watching sports entertainment by night.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll be live Thursday night. We're going to be covering the 3 Derby preps that are coming up and a couple other races. I think there's even like a fun little pick 3 that's kind of combining the 3 Derby preps. Unfortunately, they didn't take the lead that a lot of these new pick 3s are, where they're putting at the 15% takeout. But what are you going to do? I think sometimes horse racing has great ideas and they only make it halfway. But we'll see. We'll see how it does. We'll see what the handle's like, and we'll see. Hey, maybe if the sequence is playable enough, you can put a ticket in. But yeah, I think you can catch all of our other stuff on therewronglead.com at wrong_lead. I'm at Cherry Drink. Andrew is at Andrew Champagne.
All the buttons.
Hit all the buttons. Have a good weekend, guys. Let's make some money. Happy Keeneland, everybody.